it goes back to place-based jobs, right? So when we look at the Gaeltachta area, 89% of the Gaeltachta area is on an Irish coastline. So for me, when we're looking at developing strategies, it needs to tie in with what the local natural resource is. So I suppose by profession, I'm a boring old accountant. So when I started looking at Mulroy Bay, of course, I went looking at statistics, and the latest CSO figures shows that over a quarter of the jobs in Mulroy Bay area is in agriculture, forestry and fisheries. The aquaculture side of that is a little bit, is included in there, but that's 50 jobs at the moment. But I see this huge opportunity of reskilling and retraining some of those fishermen to actually translate their skills over to the aquaculture sector, but boost up their income. We're all hearing about the difficulties in inshore fisheries and larger scale fisheries with reduction in quotas, crab not being as easily caught as they were. So there's huge opportunities, but to keep people in the area based on a natural resource.
Okay, ready to go? Everyone rested, recovered? In this session, we're very excited to be discussing scaling lessons from Mulroy Bay. Joining us in this session is obviously Lorraine, General Manager of the Seaweed Company's Irish operations, and Máire, who is Marine Development Executive for Údarás. On that note, can you both give us a little intro, just to expand a bit on what you guys are up to day in, day out, in and around your operations, and how seaweed ties into all of that at the moment?
So, Údarás and Gaeltachta, our main role is to preserve the Irish language and pass it on to future generations. So, we look at this as an opportunity to, I suppose, promote economic development in the region. So, basically, create and sustain jobs based on, well, my role is particularly based on natural resource development, so place-based jobs. So, for me, a day could include seaweed, both wild seaweed harvesting, aquaculture, and now renewable energy. So loads of different things. So from an Údarás perspective, we can only support secondary processing. So companies like Lorraine who have their processing plant, and we're really reliant, I suppose, on BIM in relation to the primary can't even speak. And but what we do is with those companies, if there is, let's say, a seaweed farmer, somebody who's interested in starting out and looking at what the opportunities are for them, well, we do help them in the sense of a feasibility study. So they kind of get to assess their concept. Is it worth them investing in this company? And that's really important for us, because at the end of the feasibility study, they have a good business case to allow them to make the decision if they want to invest further, or should they go actually and partner with somebody else? Is that the best mechanism for them? So a day in my role is extremely interesting. For example, yesterday, and I always forget how big Donegal is, I was over with a company in Teelin, which is an hour and 45 minutes away from here. But I started off yesterday in Russaville, one of the fishing ports in Galway. So yeah, from there, from Russaville to Teelin, talking about everything from salmon farming to a floating wind turbine in Russaville to seaweed here today. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Lorraine, Lorraine, just to repeat, so we've obviously given us a great intro to Mulroy Bay, but a day in the life for you would be great just to hear a little bit more about what that looks like these days.
Sure. That's okay. Well, I suppose what I could do to contextualize is I could talk about our growing season, and I guess then the day in the life falls in behind that. So we are growing Alaria, organic Alaria in Mulroy Bay. The seeding season is October. So in the summertime, we are preparing to get our lines into the water. Lines go into the water in October, and they are monitored throughout the October in the growing season. And then, of course, now in our busy harvesting and processing season, the lines are coming out of the water. After they come out of the water, we have our beautiful organic product all packed up, ready to ship off. It's then time that we focus on our customers and our market. So a day in the life really is overseeing all of those different teams, whether they are the teams on the water who are looking at structures in the water, or buoys or anchors. It's the seeding strategy. How are we going to do this, and where? What technologies are we using? So we're in meetings with our ecosystems, with our partners. How are we going to improve on what we did last year? What new technologies are out there? How can we implement them either in changing what we're doing or in parallel? So continue doing what we have seen is working, or do something different? So overseeing all of these teams to bring everybody together. A lot of it is really team development as well. So we are moving from R&D into operations, and we are all sort of entrepreneurs in our own right. We have titles, we have job roles, but in fact we get sucked into so many different things, and it's so hard to pass up a really exciting opportunity as well. So we all want to do so much all of the time. So it's about a lot of what I do is linking our water team, our on-sea team with our onshore team, and our technology team with our engineering team, with our quality team and our monitoring team, because of course we have this very exciting new machine, and Aoife might say, but how will we clean that? Yeah. And the engineers say, it doesn't matter. And she says, but it does. It really does. And so it's about bringing the whole team together and I guess pushing forward.
Did you mention, is it harvesting season now?
It is.
So it's a terrible time to have a conference.
It's a very exciting time for us in business at the minute. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's incredible. So we have our 24-hectare site out in Mulroy Bay, full of really beautifully seeded lines, lots of Alaria growing there, and we have to get our seaweed out of the water within a very short space of time. So there is a really sweet spot where the Alaria has grown perfectly and beautifully before it starts to sort of taper off. And as the temperature in the water increases, lots of other organisms start growing, and they, of course, love to live on our seaweed. And so we need to get the seaweed out of the water before they start eating away at it. So it's a very, very busy time. And that's exactly why we have the processing facility on site that you will all see this afternoon, because we need the capacity to process really huge volumes of seaweed in a very short space of time. It links it all together.
And enough seaweed for the processing facility, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Why Alaria? Is that because of the end product markets, or is that because of growing conditions, or in fact a multitude of these things?
It's definitely a combination of both. So on our site, on our license, we have 13 different species listed. They are indigenous species, so that's first and foremost. They're already growing in Mulroy Bay. We would love to be able to grow many species, of course, but both the technology and or the science is not there, and or the market. So we will look for market opportunities, of course, but we recognize that Alaria is a very beautiful product for the food market. And so that is the market that we have identified, and Alaria fits very perfectly into that. And you will see that when you taste it at lunchtime in our sea meat.
Fantastic. And can I just grab them? I might help. So next question is for you, Máire. For what impact can a scaled seaweed industry have for coastal areas in this part of the world?
It goes back to place-based jobs, right? So when we look at the Gaeltachta area, 89% of the Gaeltachta area is on an Irish coastline. So for me, when we're looking at developing strategies, it needs to tie in with what the local natural resource is. So I suppose by profession, I'm a boring old accountant. So when I started looking at Mulroy Bay, of course, I went looking at statistics, and the latest CSO figures shows that over a quarter of the jobs in Mulroy Bay area is in agriculture, forestry and fisheries. The aquaculture side of that is a little bit, is included in there, but that's 50 jobs at the moment. But I see this huge opportunity of reskilling and retraining some of those fishermen to actually translate their skills over to the aquaculture sector, but boost up their income. We're all hearing about the difficulties in inshore fisheries and larger scale fisheries with reduction in quotas, crab not being as easily caught as they were. So there's huge opportunities, but to keep people in the area based on a natural resource. So I feel we'll see a huge economic increase in this area in our next few years, next 5 years. It's the CSO, isn't it? So yeah, we'll see big changes with the Seaweed Company.
And in terms of engagement with the local people and the fishermen, the fisherfolk, how's that process? How is that for you? Because it's a lot of it's advocacy, a lot of it's working together, engagement, as we said before. It's not easy. What is the secret silver bullet? What are the 2 or 3 points that really help with engaging the community, keeping their minds open, or do they come to you because they know that seaweed's a great potential benefit for their operations, or is it much more the other way around, where you have to go back and rediscuss the situation?
So I suppose there's different elements to the community. We deal with community groups. Údarás have 33 co-ops all along the Gaeltachta areas. So it's very different, I suppose, when you're speaking to fishermen and when you're speaking to community groups. We've learned huge lessons from working with the Shellfish Co-op in the Galway area. It's a group of 88 fishermen from probably 20 years of age up to 65, 70 years of age, with all different perspectives and I suppose a lot of history, with their background. But we've made huge developments with that co-op. That co-op has come from the worst in Ireland to what we've been told now is the second best after Tralee, by putting good corporate governance structures in place. But we had to wait for them to come to us and ask us for support. As I said, we can't get involved with primary processing. But just from working with them and being honest, I think always honesty is the best policy. We have, I suppose, the whole ethos in place, like, a fast no is much better than, a slow yes. And that's how we've been working with them. But so one of my first roles in Údarás, I suppose, was working on this concept, Páirc na Máire, 18 acres of land with access to fresh water and seawater. So to develop that concept. But the first meeting with the local community group was, their whole idea of aquaculture and Páirc na Máire was standing gutting fish, right, at a processing line. They had no idea about the huge potential that it could bring. So what we did was actually organise an opening day. We brought people to the site and brought in all the local companies, the universities, local companies. We shipped in schools from all across the Galway Gaeltachta. And it was fantastic. I think by 11 o'clock there was 250 cups of tea drank. So, but to that day we also gave invites to the likes of the Federation Against Salmon, FISTA. And they actually afterwards had a piece in the Skipper magazine about how fantastic the day was and how much it just opened up people's eyes in relation to the opportunity. And collaboration and connections are key. Again, I suppose everything we do in relation to education, we're really lucky, I suppose, with our connections with the ETB's Education Training Board. We've ran QQI Level 5 courses in seaweed aquaculture in Galway. We would love to do that here in Donegal. We had people coming down from Mayo to do that course who were driving 5 hours essentially to come and to learn how to farm seaweed themselves. I must say, I did that course and I found it much harder than any of my chartered accounting exams. So, but I had fishermen in there who thought that they would be copying me when it came to tests. But sure, they were the ones who were helping me. Like, they have the skills. So it's just giving them the confidence. And I suppose I always use this example, and I probably embarrass him a little bit, but my own brother, during COVID, he'd finished one job and he'd got a new job as a construction project manager in Dublin. COVID hit, he gets the phone call to say, sorry, you can't start yet. So Michael decides to go down and harvest seaweed. And as he says, he was getting paid much more than he would be in his construction job. His health was so much better and he was really enjoying it. But he had people saying to him, what are you doing now? And he'd say, I'm cutting seaweed and waiting for a job to start. He said people were just looking at him like, is that all you're doing? So we really need to work on developing that whole concept. And that's why we started at Údarás, really thinking about this educational aspect, and that somebody who is a fisherman, a seaweed farmer, or a seaweed harvester can actually work all their income together and have a really good job, and for it to be seen as a good job.
Well, if I may build on that,
yeah.
Forbes magazine recently published a magazine about the jobs of the future, and the number one job was seaweed farmer. So
Brilliant.
yeah, so he's quite a visionary. And the other thing is that with all AI going on, seaweed farming, I doubt that it will be taken over by AI. So that is like it's a healthy and future-proof job, I would say.
Podcasting, terrible. Yeah, no chance. Yeah. Seaweed farming is on my radar, absolutely. On that front, we've spoken, Lorraine, about cultivated seaweed. And in the UK, there is this acknowledgement that wild seaweed should be the stepping stone for developing markets. Let cultivated flourish. That's one approach. Or we go for scale as quickly as possible. We get nice cultivated farms, and we try and get to 1,000 tons or whatnot. So what were both of your thoughts actually on that topic? Is that something that you guys take a hard line against, or is it something that you guys are open to for servicing the market with the right products?
I think we will always have a consumer perception on wild versus farmed. We see it in terrestrial farming. We see it in other types of aquaculture. We see it in salmon. We see it wild versus farmed. And I think it's very interesting because as we speak about it, it's very clear, wild versus farmed. But when we are actually going shopping, it is not so clear. And it's actually, we want a solution when we are shopping for omega-3s, which is salmon. We want to feed our families. We want a healthy meal, and we want something that everybody is going to be happy with. And again, as Joost mentioned earlier this morning, we're an impact-driven company. We want to make an impact on the total food system as it is. We're not saying wild is better than farmed or vice versa. What we're saying is we want healthier food and a healthier planet. And so, yes, we believe that by farming seaweed scalably with a low positive environmental impact, we have a really fantastic monitoring team, a really fantastic monitoring strategy that we improve on every single year to make sure that we are future-proofing ourselves, that we are learning everything about our environment. So I think, yes, we need a lot of seaweed because we want to make a big impact. And the best way to do that is with efficiencies, with really great markets, creating new markets, working with our partners, our current food system, and of course retailers, and then of course consumer perception. But as I say, when we go shopping for our food, every week, it's about having a product there that is what the customer wants. It's tasty, it's healthy, it's at a good price. It's not more expensive or less expensive. It's just hitting all of the great points. And as Albert Heijn announced this week, they are transforming their meat section, their meat delivery to their customers. So they will have hybrid meat products on their shelves. So they will have beef with chicken, or beef with something else, or chicken with something else. And the whole reason is to reduce the carbon footprint. So we know that this is what people want, but they can't make that decision themselves. Well, they can, but again, we need to offer those solutions. So we need to put those products in front of them on the shelf, and we need them to be comfortable and want to purchase them.
Great answer. Did you want to add to that, or?
So that was about, I'll bring it back to that wild versus cultivated part. I would like to use this opportunity to make a distinction into wild harvesting. And I think there are, let's say, destructive extraction ways of getting seaweed off the seabed. I think that is, we have a strong position against that because that is most probably not so sustainable. If you look at wild harvesting, the way it's been done for centuries here in Ireland, it is pretty sustainable. It's like mowing your grass. It's like, if you do it by hand, etc., there's nothing wrong with that. If it is scalable, I don't know. So that is perfectly great in a community to use it for small scale, like I think you said as well, for artisanal stores. Now, if you want to really scale up, and that's an interesting point because probably people think with scaling is big and large, etc. The beauty of seaweed is doesn't have to be centralized big farms. It's decentralized. It's a lot of smaller farms along the coast, making use of those coastal families. I think that's scaling up with nature instead of against nature. That is what we stand for.
Yeah.
Great answer. Máire, so you making some notes?
So I suppose your question, the UK government was saying to start with harvesting, wild harvesting, and then go to aquaculture?
Not the government, just stakeholders. So we've seen a few stakeholders say we need wild.
And who were these stakeholders? Have they ever gone down to the shore to cut seaweed? It's very strenuous. It's very strenuous work. So if they're talking about, market gaps, this is what we need to look at, what the market needs, and then to work backwards to find the solution. In relation to scaling, we have some fantastic companies in Ireland who've been very successful in scaling from wild harvested seaweed. We've got OGT over here, David, who they're owned by an international company now, who use ascophyllum, Joseph, for basically fertilizers on golf courses. I hope I'm saying that correct, David. But we also have Alan O'Sullivan from BioBio in the back of the room there, another Donegal Gaeltachta company who is looking at a seaweed biorefinery from wild. I don't see that there's no reason why both can't actually work with each other successfully, but really it has to begin first with what the market gap is, because you mentioned it earlier, and we've seen it on a number of occasions where people get so focused on getting their aquaculture license and start to grow seaweed and don't think about the markets. So it really goes back to the market.
Now they have a place to go to.
Absolutely.
I think it's time to open the floor, because I feel there are some questions on the room. Roishi.
How should we approach shellfish farmers and other fisherfolk to get them to start farming seaweed?
I suppose at the moment seaweed is seen as a trend. Everyone wants to get a little bit of their market, I suppose. We've been talking a lot recently, even to salmon farmers who are actually starting to look at seaweed harvesting now. In the past, it was seen as something, somebody else can do that. That this salmon industry is too large to be looking at the seaweed industry. But I suppose the IMTA system is working very well, that excess nutrients is being diverted to the seaweed farm. And there's examples from Bantry Bay where Freddie O'Mahony and BMRS, when the salmon farm was operating, seen, I think it was an increase in production of 40% by locating near the farm. But in relation to getting them to do more, I suppose it's all about the education piece. I met with some people yesterday and they have started to add seaweed to their license. So I think there's also a fear about who's going to take over my bay. If I don't apply for a seaweed license, somebody else is going to do it. Yeah.
So with us, we are already involved in an IMTA project, a European-wide project. So we're very lucky in Mulroy Bay currently because we have a multi-trophic system naturally there. We have salmon, we have mussels, we have shellfish, and we have, of course, seaweed. So data is really key for us, and data first. So first of all, I think what's really important is to collect the data and show the results, because it's like any business. The mussel farmers or the other aquaculture farmers, they want to know what's in it for me, how does it help me, how does it improve what I'm doing, and how is it good? So we are already collecting some really fantastic data, and I think that's the first thing, show how we can work together. And again, events like this today and clams groups are really important. So we have a clams group in Mulroy Bay where our neighbours, we would say, in the bay come together, chat about what's going on there, be open and transparent with each other about what we're planning to do with our business and their business, and then of course open up those dialogues, and then of course opportunities arise as well.
I've got a question, Karen.
Yeah.
What role can TSC and other public authorities play to support a healthy and sustainable seaweed industry in Donegal?
I would say keeping up the momentum. You mentioned that seaweed is exciting. People are talking nice things about seaweed at the moment. And we know that, there's all of that momentum at the moment. And I think we need to capitalize on it and really protect it, really go with it now when we've got the energy, and really continue doing the great work that we're doing. Protect that. Again, I mentioned collecting data, environmental impact, make sure that we are actually protecting the environment. It's so important to understand the impact that we're having. It's very likely super, super, super positive, but we have to be able to prove that, both for licenses, to make sure that, when we want to change our license, that we know, okay, this will have a positive environmental impact, and here is the data to show it. So I'd say continue with the excitement, but always realizing that, we're in business and we've got to protect our neighbours and the environment.
And let's set up that task force that Stefan was talking about, I think that's one of the biggest thing that we can actually do. But from an Údarás perspective, we acknowledge some of the issues and constraints that you mentioned earlier, such as, no off-the-shelf equipment. So what we can actually provide at Údarás level is capital granted for some of those equipment, some of it being secondhand that you can rejig. So that's kind of, it's good. It's different. It acknowledges that there is no off-the-shelf equipment there. But let's start this task force.
Super. Well, thank you very much.